Okay, so this is our Cell Talk book club, and we're on chapter 2, but we were discussing how chapter 2 is a lot. And from this point forward, as it stands, it looks like on the schedule, we're going to be meeting on the second Friday of the month at noon Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to give a quick introduction of Linda just because Adriana just came on. And Linda's going to correct me on this, but she took the first class with Dr. John and she TA'd with Dr. John. She actually TA'd for Chaz and several other instructors. And so we're really blessed to have her here today because she says this book is just in her. And, you know, Eileen and I were talking about how, like, she made it through half, I made it through 75%, and we may break this up to the next meeting. We'll just see because the next chapter is not that long. So we may be able to, kind of catch up, but how we're not really sticking to just chapters, but we are kind of going to go guided through chapters and make it an ish because I think this book is not designed to be through chapters, but I think that it helps us to do it by chapter to chunk it together. Okay, I'm sorry, Linda. I know I ended up cutting you off to do that, but go ahead and
No
keep
problem.
sharing.
I'm so glad that you are doing this. Um, what I started out in this work. I lived in the East Coast for most of my life. I've been in Utah now for 19 years, but I've TA'd over the years with 31 different instructors, including Dr. John. I've TA'd through all of the curriculum. I never had any idea that this work would become so significant in my life, and it continues to be. um, I will just say one thing, and I like your idea, Michelle, of breaking it up because it's there is so much. So this is kind of how I think the work works. This is a little sculpture that was made for me many years ago by a sculptor in marble in the East Coast. He took a piece of marble, a hunk of marble, and he realized that he could see a face in that marble. What did he do? All he did to make the face show up was slowly remove what was not authentic to the face, and the face revealed itself. That's why this work, in my estimation, is so profound and powerful because, and people kind of wonder how can it do so many, how can it be good for so many different kinds of things? It's because it addresses what gets in the way, whether it's structural and physical restrictions in tissue, restrictions in joints, restrictions in fluid flow. It addresses the issues in the tissues. That's the somato-emotional release work. It even, at this point in my life, I even work a lot with with people with what they call stinking thinking, with thoughts or habits, patterns that go around and around and don't take you where you want to go. So by addressing what gets in the way of that life force within, the life force just expresses itself. And that's what I have learned over and over and over again through the work. I am thrilled that you, Michelle, have taken it upon yourself to go into this with us and commit to it regularly. I want to just say one more thing and then I'll shut up and let others speak. On the front of my edition, which came out in 2003 and which John inscribed to me, on
Look
this
at
one,
Adriana. Adriana's like geeking out over here.
Well, good. On the front of this,
Can we see Dr. John's?
can you see his inscription? It's
Yeah.
it it's it. There was, see, John was not an easy guy. He was a genius, but anybody who hung out with him at any length of time refers to the tire tracks that we had on our back from being bowled over. So there was a time when John and I were not very close. And then, long story short, he got softer. I would say I grew a pair. And by the time I moved west and we reconnected, we really connected again and just loved one another. But he wrote this. All it says is Linda with love and best. He wrote that in 2003. And that was in the period of time when we weren't, where we had issues between us. Neither one of us was seeing the other for who we were. Anyhow, what I wanted to point out was on the front cover of this one, he says, talking to your CELL, and then a parentheses, F, talking to yourself. And he had to struggle. I don't think that's on any other issue, on other editions. He had to fight, which he could do very well, with the publisher to get that absolutely ungrammatical CELL parentheses F structure on the cover of the book. And I don't think it's on there anymore. But our cells, I mean, we can talk with every cell. There is intelligence in every part of us. And where is our self? Our self is, I don't know where it really is, but it's certainly partly in our cells. So I love it that you are taking on this amazing mission of discussing this volume with us. Let me pass the talking stick to somebody else.
I've had this book for so long. I know Adriana has read through it and it's like her Bible. Like I said, have a history of not completing things unless I commit to other people. And that was how I got through my exam, is that I created a study group, which I now run, because I'll finish this question. And then 2 months would go by and I'd be like, I got to work on my exam. And I said, if I keep saying this, it's going to drive me insane. So for me, what happened was that a lot of the classes I was getting into were like, yeah, you really need to read Cell Talk. And I would read certain parts of it. And then I said to Fred, so yeah, I run the book club. And I said, what book should I pick next? Now, mind you, there's a copy online of this that I actually won from Upledger. And then I had a copy at home. And he goes, Cell Talk. And I was like, oh. And then I knew, okay, I know I'm not backing down from this. And at that point, Adriana and I were talking about, how do you do this? How are we going to go forward with this? Because we both talk about the book, but we're like, it's such a difficult book to talk about. And that's where the breaking it up, I was like, there is no way that I am going to read this whole book and we're going to sit down in even 3 hours and be able to discuss what we need to discuss. So I'm going with it as is. I think it'll work that way. And, Eileen, I'm right there with you. I got 75% through. And then I told them that I ended up starting to read through the second chapter again. What was really funny is I accidentally turned to the first chapter, and I had so much more to say about the first chapter than I did last month. Like, because if Adriana knows, I don't know if Eileen and Linda, you don't know that I also do the Amen University program, which is actually looking at the brain and looking at the SPECT scans. And he is a psychiatrist who He is a psychiatrist that says, why are we not looking at the brain? Why are we just throwing medications at it and then wondering why it doesn't work? And then we tweak them and then we keep them on that one, even though it's not working, and give them another one. And so he got fed up with the system. And it actually works really beautifully with craniosacral work, despite the fact that I'm actually working hand in hand with Mike Morgan right now. But despite the fact that there is something going on in there where when each person does their research, there's a bit of a block. Because apparently Dr. Amen did not want to hear Mike Morgan talking about 10 years ago. And so right now, my goal is to be working on this book while doing the Alzheimer's program and doing the Amen University program, being able to have a conversation with Dr. Amen himself, who asked me to head his next cohort, which won't be until August, and still working with Mike Morgan. And I want to get the two of them married together because Dr. Amen just got invited to the White House to meet with Callie Means and RFK about changing over our food and our toxins and all of that. And this whole chapter, I found my brain checking out with the wanting to know. I actually put a call in to Tad yesterday to try and get him to talk with me as well about the glial cells with this chapter. My whole brain is just going absolutely bonkers with the chemicals that we're adding in our food, that even if we're getting organic, we're still getting chemicals. And so I'm having a really hard time focusing on it because I'm like, okay, so then what chemicals go in here and how does that mess us up? And how can I get more information on this chapter, which is part of the reason why I want to push another month, because I'm going to see if I can't talk to either Fred, Liz, Mike Morgan, or Tad about this chapter in particular and toxins. And then looking at, I'm like, my mind is like, oh my God, because like we keep calling things like Alzheimer's, and it's not a diagnosis, it's not a disease, it's inflammation, it's toxins in the body. We got to stop diagnosing. And that was my big overall on this. And other than that, I have no idea what I was going to say because that is just, there's so much in my head right now. And I brought a book because I want to write down what we say today. And I want to bring these questions to one of those people. Liz works with the glial cells now that Tad retired, but I'm still going to try and get in touch with Tad. Because I just want to check in on him anyway. And you guys give me your ideas because we really need more of this. And we need people to understand it more. I mean,
I don't want to
we need
take
our
up too much.
kids to get
I don't
this.
want to take up too much time, but I will say, as somebody who's older than any of the others here, that what I consider toxic thinking is probably more important than the kinds of things. I mean, I'm not downplaying. I've TA'd with Michael Morgan, I've TA'd with Tad, I've TA'd with Avedon, blah, 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 blah. But our state of consciousness, the wholeness of our entire being matters more. The integration of what is true. And right now, I personally, while I do have some respect for Robert F. Kennedy, our Secretary of Health and Human Services. Holy cow, he would have been the last person that I would have put in that position. And so, right, you're skating, Michelle. I mean, you're kind of skating on thin ice of trying to bring together people whose politics is greatly divergent. And I do recognize that there is more that unites us than which divides us. And I wish you well.
Yeah, I am. And
Our consciousness matters matters more than what we take into our bodies. Not that that doesn't matter, it does. You know, we are what we eat, but our state of consciousness, which is our psyche, which is our soul, that is divine. And it is not harmed by plastics. Says I.
So as much as like what I was going to say if politics came up, which of course I inadvertently brought up politics, and I don't want it to be a political thing. But
Yes.
yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Although I will tell you, in my experience with my age bracket, um, there's been one of the biggest things I've seen is that women are complaining a lot about hormones, or that women are complaining a lot about menopause. Whereas when I talk to my elders in my family, the females, they did not suffer the stuff that we had in menopause. And so one of the things I've been like kind of that's been coming to me is, birth control has also been very different in my age group and my elders' age group. And I don't know because I haven't studied, but that's what's been really coming up for me in this. And so, therefore, if our hormones are off and if we've been messing with our hormones because women have taken on that responsibility to shift our bodies, then we're more susceptible to those toxins. And yes, I completely agree. It is emotional. And Adriana understands this because I have a mother who I'm caring for right now. She does not have Alzheimer's. I took her and did extensive testing, despite the fact the modern medical world is, he did a 7-minute exam on her, Adriana, and said, "You're 83, so most likely you have Alzheimer's." Looked her right in the eyes. And I was just appalled because I did all the testing before I took her to him because I knew that's what our modern medical world would say. And I've seen her diet go downhill. And with her diet, so has her spirit and her emotion. And so all of that being tied together is my ultimate goal. But that little marriage is like one part of what I'm working on because I've had to work really hard to be on my spiritual side and my mindset, because my mom and I do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. She is not somebody that I would normally hang around. And so it's been difficult for me. So and this sounds so mean, I've been detoxing from my mom. So I'm up to 3 meditations a day to be able to keep my health. And so yeah, I do absolutely see the importance. And I'm just happy that they are evaluating things like this. They're looking at the studies and all of that. And I feel like that's a stab in the right direction, as well as hopefully our mental health, which is what Dr. Amen focuses on. And I'm hoping that our mental health will move forward. He talks about meditation as well. And Dr. Amen does. And so that's why I think if we do bring together body work, chemistry, mental health, integrating everything of the world together to see what works best for us, because it's not just America. It's not just what they do in Germany. It's not, and that's like the big picture is really everything. And that's why I'm hoping to bring them together, is to have them have these conversations about all of it. So that's my ultimate goal, Linda. It's not to try and get them to focus on the chemicals. It is, they all have the answer together. They just have to come together. And I'm just really hopeful that I can be the catalyst, because I network people and I introduce people. And so I'm hoping that that's my niche, and that makes a difference. I'll be that quiet person in the background. Let them meet and talk. So is there something on this chapter in particular that anybody wanted to cover?
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for including me today. Um, on page 38, it was talking about what Linda was saying too about well, he didn't put in there toxic thoughts. I thought it would be great to add to the list, but basically was saying that our chromosomes and our genes are affected by outside influences. And so he lists, of course, toxins and radiation and magnetic fields and biochemical conditions and all these things, but he doesn't say toxic thoughts. But that actually is perfect because we all know that when we're working on somebody and they have a thought, you can feel that thought. You can say, "Hey, what are you thinking right now?"
Yeah,
When
what
they
happened?
go into still point, or when something starts to move, or when something just well, there's so many ways we can feel their thoughts, right? So even just feeling the tissues moving, and or just feeling their body all of a sudden get lighter. I love those moments. I'm like, hey, what's that thought right there? It's just that you
Yeah.
just feel it in the room, you feel it in your gut. You're just like something good is going on. So absolutely, that the thoughts matter because it's an energy, and Dr. Upledger talks about that again on I think it was page 45 when he was saying like something about how basically the point is that everything inside of us is more intelligent than what we can even think of. We can't comprehend all of these things, and we don't have to. We can study them and we can talk about them, and but the body's always going to speak to us in the language which we understand. I think is what he said in one of his other books. It's like we don't have to really worry about understanding all of the nooks and crannies. Like the best we can understand, no matter what, our clients' bodies are going to respond that way in the language we understand. So yeah, that was like the main thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about today was like the energy, and how crazy that he starts going into these, the cavalines and the, all these parts of our bodies that actually communicate, the protein ions. They communicate with energy. They're actually sending energetic messages, and they respond to energetic messages. And it's like, well, hello, if these things have energetic transmissions and we're accepted as science, then why can't we transmit energy to each other and that be accepted as science? So it's just amazing, this chapter, really, how intelligent everything is without us thinking about it, and how intelligent energy is, and just sharing energy. And like, I mean, you guys know when you're in a class with 40 people and somebody has a major shift and everybody feels it and everybody exhales at the same time, like it's amazing. So I feel like to me, that's what this chapter was really boiling down to, was like that we don't have to know it all, and that energy is really important.
Yeah, yeah, we can sit there and geek out and stress over knowing everything, but the body's going to do what the body's going to do. And you said it so beautifully. I mean, it's just, when somebody's resisting a toxic
Yes.
or what have you, and you're like that screeching halt. And I think we talked about this on the last call, was the fourth phase of water, when he's talking about the negative and positive ions and the changing of the water itself, and the H3O as opposed to the H2O, like in our bodies. And what does that do for us? Human touch. And the another thing came up for me too, and I know, Adriana, you're going to want to get on this topic probably, and I'm fine if we do. As long, and I don't think we're going to have any problem with anybody being respectful or disrespectful, but the part of the topic that I want to hit is, and you and I talked about this, was during COVID, people were missing the human touch and hugs, and there's still a significant shift that I've noticed in people that come through my door that haven't had regular body work since COVID. Remember when we did that thing, Adriana, where it pulled your ribs together and lifted you off the table? It's like, you know, when he talks about the radiation and all of that around that page of 38, or was it 38 that he talks about the radiation? That's what really came up for me, was the fact that we weren't having the exchanges of ions together as well as the physical hug. Because remember when he talks about how when a baby comes out and all that pressure that is on the baby's head that starts the cranial rhythm, getting in the right direction depending on how the birth is. But we like lost, we had to ask to hug somebody. It changed so much. And so therefore, like, there's so many things that I want to research since starting to read this book, that my brain just goes everywhere. Like, you know, what goes on when somebody has to ask for a hug? I would love to hook somebody up and see what is happening for you when you just go in for the hug and you know you can, as opposed to asking. And how does your body change over 2 months without having a hug? So Adriana, as soon as you said that, you reminded me that's what was going through my mind at that part. Like, we were going to the doctor, we were doing all this stuff, and that COVID wasn't just about COVID, you know, and so many people look at it as it was just COVID. It was like, I don't know if you guys did this, but when I saw people, like, I get this gut wrenching tightness, like in my solar plexus, like, really want to hug this person. And I would like keep, like, my vagus nerve would hold like this 10% of stress over that.
I would just do it. I did
I was
just
just hugging
do it.
everybody too.
Yes, yes.
I
I
did
mean,
not hug
because
anybody.
it's about, as far as I'm concerned, honestly, it's about living well and knowing that love is stronger than fear.
You know,
And
I get that, but it's different in different areas.
oh,
Adrian,
indeed,
areas
indeed.
that I,
But I'm not saying I'm not. No argument whatsoever. But we do the best we can
yeah.
where we are. And one of the advantages of being old is that I have lived through all kinds of other crises in this country. I mean, the polio epidemic when I was a little kid, the Vietnam War, the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution, uh, Richard Nixon being, tricky Dick thrown out of office. And, so one of the advantages of being old and being very vital is that you can get through that. Hard times come and hard times go, and that you can get through them. And if you can't, there are those who can. And as Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire. It's been always turning. It's been always burning since the world was turning. We just I love this work because it helps me be the true light that I am, and addresses what gets in the way of my capacity to do that. And all that does, well, that does two things. It makes me happy in my own life, but it also reminds others that they can do the same. That's the job. It's like one candle lighting another candle, and the flame, every story is different, every life is different, but boy, do we shine brightly together. And that's honestly what it's about. What does Eileen have to say?
Well, and one of the things that I highlighted in this book was when Dr. John says that, he can change the polarity in his hands just by thought. And that is that is such a powerful statement. And again, saying it, how much our our emotions, our thought process can change and can make that shift. So that by itself is so powerful. And it was confirmed by, by science that he can change his polarity. So that touch and that intention, and that is what cranial is all about. So, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what's really stuck out with me through this chapter, and the intelligence of the cells of our body. I mean, I've never really thought about it until doing this work about it. It really goes deep beyond our own capacity to really understand. But yes, thank
And
you
then,
so much.
you know, Eileen, then that brings to me the neutrality and openness of the therapist for the somato-emotional release, for
Yes.
or for even just the space on the table if somebody's not wanting to talk about it, but their thoughts go there and they feel that.
Yes.
And then how that can create ease in the cells and the flow. I mean, one of the things that I say to the people that I see, I always say the only thing that I want you to focus on, that our goal is to create balance between left, right, top, bottom, front, back. More flow in your body, because when I'm talking to you about movement, we're not talking about just like a workout. We're talking about, there may be areas that you have restrictions in your body that the flow isn't getting there. So you may have everything else healthy, but this one area is causing you a problem. It's jammed up and we want to get that flowing. So we talk about balance and flow and, you know, so I try to take it down to that, because I say the ultimate goal 100% is to open up any restrictions and flow and balance.
I do a lot of work with kids. I always have a model of a turtle in my office. I'll ask kids, what does a turtle do when it doesn't feel safe? Pulls in. That's called protective retraction. If any of you have studied with Sue Kratz, who's a pediatric OT, 40-year Upledger person, she talks about protective retraction. Sea anemones, turtles, cats, us, we all pull in for protection. Nature puts that in it's part of evolution because it is of use, but it's not a great place to live. And so in safety, which comes from, in therapeutic presence, safety, which we create with our intention, with our being, allows the client to begin to, like the turtle, begin to poke its head out and its feet out of the shell, and the tissues which were tight and restricting blood vessels and lymphatic vessels and cerebros, but all of the clenching can begin to open. And for movement to occur, there must be space. We don't make space, we allow space. And it's a very different mindset. And people will say to me, why isn't this form of thinking, why isn't this, this all makes so much sense, why isn't it the norm? Beats me. I don't know why it's not the norm, but it's my norm, and I share it with whomever. So we're sharing it together. And Dr. John used to say intention is the shortest distance between two people. Intention is so key.
I've heard that reference so much. And I would say, and I know this sounds crazy, but in almost every, that could actually be used in almost every conversation. Because usually when people are fighting over something, they have the same intention. They just either aren't communicating the same or whatever, you know, like it's very rare, like that somebody, you know, every, like, without going in, like even with illness or whatever, if say two parents are divorced, they both want their kids to be healthy while they're going through an illness. They just have a different way to communicate or whatever. And yeah. Yeah, and even think about that from the intelligence of the cell.
Yeah, I was thinking like, we're reading
If
all
you're
this,
looking,
everything's so intelligent, going on in our bodies, and we're like, even say we even forget to set an intention or have an intention, and we just show up and somebody's hurting and we put our hands on them, we fall asleep at the table, but we're still working on them. It still works. For some reason, it still works. There's still something going on. There's still something happening. There's so much going on that over all these years, I just learned to just trust my hands with or without my brain, or with or without my heart. I mean, it's like there's something that's so magical between these hands when it, when they go on the body, no matter, you know, um, how I come to the table. It's been just really amazing how, just learning this trust that things are gonna know what to do without me there trying to figure it out. And
like
Ding,
your inner
ding, ding,
physician
ding.
coming
That
through your
is
hand.
so right. And that's one of the things. I mean, I was a techniques examiner for 10 years. I was one of the few non-instructor examiners. And one of the things that differentiates what I call the big kids in this work from the little kids is precisely that, Adriana, your level of trust in your hands, your level of trust that things will unfold well enough in their time. I mean, I haven't the faintest idea how right now I'm thinking thoughts and turning them into words and speaking to you guys. I haven't the faintest idea, but apparently somehow some part of my being knows how to do this, and I do not need to know what it is because it's
Wow.
divine
That's
intelligence.
it's true. I always say if I get too lost in all of the bits, then I'll come back 1,000 more lifetimes just to learn these little geeky bits. And I'm like, no, I have to move past like just that, just the details and just the facts. And I have to get to the meat, to the intuition, to the trust, to the things that I'm never gonna know. And those are the things that are working. Those are the things that are real. And the other things, it's like almost like, well, that's what you think right now, but then 10 years later a whole different thing comes out. So because these scientists, they keep finding a new thesis and a new reason for things, and so really we can't trust any of it. It's just what's in our gut and what's in our hands that we can trust. It's like
John was amazing in that he had an extraordinary grasp of reality from the macro to the micro. I mean, he did years of work in cell biology after he was a DO. He could go deep and he could go way out. And honestly, the single biggest gift that I got from him was observing and being infected, like infected with a virus, the power of the imagination. His imagination, Einstein said imagination matters more than knowledge. We can always look stuff up, but our capacity to imagine, you know, my imagination is less vast than John's, but he has infected me, and it really makes such a difference. And we catch all this stuff from one another, which is like what Michelle was saying about the absence of hugs and touch. We need one another. We heal in community. So I thank you, Michelle, that you've made this community.
Well, I appreciate you guys showing up because it wouldn't be a community without you.
well, one nerdy geeky bit about the book, page
Adriana
43.
and I, we mix each other up a lot because we get nerdy geeky and then we go, oh. So one thing, Linda, real quick, I was going to say, so
Yeah.
we don't need to finish the book
Yeah.
because it's not about how it does it. So now we can just stop. No.
No.
Life
It's a nerdy
wants
geeky page 51.
life wants to live, and wounds want to heal, and there's room for it all.
What page, Adriana? 50
Oh,
what?
I was just mentioning something from I think it was 43. I'm trying to read my own writing because I lost my notes and had to redo some real quick. And anyway, it was about, I think it's pronounced the vesicle, and how this vesicle, it when it goes to this through this process of excitosis, and so it's, you know, opening and it's dumping out the bigger molecules or toxins or something that are inside. And it said when it when it's dumping, it's doing actually like contracting to get the stuff out, to get those bigger molecules out or to get the toxins out. And I was thinking, oh, that must be one of the feelings when we're feeling under our hands in the cells, or something starts moving really fast and it gets hot and you're just like, wow, what is going on under there? You know, and I'm thinking now I'm going to be like, oh, is that the vesicle dumping? Is it the vesicle going through excitosis? So I'm sure knowing these extra little things that the
How deep are you? So has this changed your work reading through this? Because Eileen, I know that you were focused on advanced one, but did it come up to you to think about the cellular level when you were doing advanced one? How deep are you feeling in?
During advanced one?
Yeah, or
Oh
in
God.
any work. I just wondered because you can't help but to kind of picture it if you're reading the book and then you go work on somebody, you know, then you're kind of thinking about it and it brings it to the table, right?
Well,
It's
yeah, I mean, the fascinating part was how much the cells have that intelligence where people, so we have some, you know, practitioner were not really aware on the surface level of what was going on in their tissue level until it came up to the surface. And one example was one of the practitioner had a what seems like a past life regression that came up that she had no idea of. But in her present time, it came up as pain. But on the table, it was this memory of a past life. So and I start thinking like, wow, you know, does her body tissue is like, how is it that it's kind of remembering what on the surface we don't, but then it has something. I mean, it goes so much deeper. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, what is going on here? You know, how does the cell know things that
we get to that in
didn't
this
happen in
book.
this lifetime, but it's something in their soul is, you know, their soul intelligence that's coming to the surface. And that's when, so that, you know, that definitely came up to my mind about like, wow, there's so much we don't know, but but it's just really fascinating in how deep this work goes beyond our understanding here. But, you know, at the same time, it's just this great healing that comes up, you know, and then again, as that collective, you know, I felt like we were in this bubble of these, you know, we had 11 of us and we had just a safe, you know, we all have the same intention of coming together to heal each other and ourselves. And it's so powerful of what has come up to allow to come up to the surface for healing. And even other people have shared like, you know, has come up that they kept a secret that they only shared with their therapist. And here we are, it's like we just met each other. We don't know each other. And it's just it's powerful. When community comes together, you don't have to be related. I mean, here we are strangers. You know, I think I had a class with one gal, but beyond that, I don't know anybody deeply. But then to come together with this intention, it was powerful, you know, being part of this collective. So that was my big takeaway from Advance One. Absolutely the best class I've taken so far. And exhausting, but it was so worth it. Made me question
yeah,
more.
yeah, and isn't that living though? That's
Yeah.
questioning is living. And yeah, I think I brought to the table how blessed I was to have people to trust me that just come through the door. Like, even though I already felt that way, because, my background was in the fire department. I was in compartmentalizing. That was my, that was my shtick. I had been taught that as a kid. And I'm going through some stuff with my mom now with some memory loss that is, a lot of it is coming from the fact that she really struggles because she's like, I don't want to think about negative stuff, but yet she talks about it constantly. And that's part of what is tanking her, because she gets stuck on those ideas. And we've always had a rough relationship. And for about 9 months, we had a really great relationship. I was working on her every week. And then something shifted in her life, and a whole bunch of really negative stuff. Like, she was continuously letting go of some stuff. And I was like, look, we're going to be the turtle. We're going to be slow and steady. We're going to be a snail, whatever her body is allowing. And she was really doing well. And then she completely tanked after this one session because she wasn't happy going home for about a week and a half because there was nobody there, and she had a severe anxiety over being alone. Even though it was temporary, I had to send her to somebody else because it was beyond the connection that we had developed. And now we're back to where we were, and she's really struggling with that because I've taken her to EMDR therapy and CranioSacral and a couple other things. And she's having a difficult time because in her is where, she did better than her dad as a parent. And he may have done better than his dad, but I'm watching this ancestry go down, and I see my kids being affected by it. And because I compartmentalized until my kids were about 10, and then that's when I started learning the work, when I got thrown into it from my own junk. And so my kids' first 10 years, were me not being emotional over things and just trying to get through a lot of trauma. And it's conversations that at the age of about 30 that I'm having with my kids, like probably the past 7 years, I've been really talking to them about, look, I've done a lot of work, and I'm like, I'm sorry that I had it together in your eyes. Like, I either had it together or I didn't. It was one or the other. And when I didn't, it was behind closed doors. But yet when they would get hurt, I would be like, no, no, you cry. It's okay if it hurts. You cry. And I told them that, but I wasn't living that. And that's another level of like looking at, what does that do to the teeny tiny cells in your body when you hold that tension and that, it just, the meditations that I've been doing since I've picked up so much, like I feel it so deep. And I think I told you, Adriana, that I just felt like somebody grabbed right in my solar plexus, right at the vagus nerve, and was just holding it as tight as can be. And I was doing like 3 meditations a day, and then I finally got rid of it. And then one day I skipped all my meditations, and I was like, oh, I literally felt like I was getting the flu, and I'm like, I need to get back on the table. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the core of everything that's happening to me. Was, yes, I made food changes. I made this change. So cellularly, I was going non-toxic, and the stuff. Gosh, how was I presenting to other people? Like, how was I able to have like that open, you know, um, people have done for other people then. You know, because if my cells are talking to theirs and mine are holding tight, you know? Go ahead, Adriana. See you going. See them going.
Well, I was just telling you it was frozen and you were breaking up.
You're muted. So Adriana and I work on each other. And so that's why when I say
It froze again. We can't hear you, Michelle. Oh, she hung up.
Oh, you might come back on.
Yeah, there she
I
is.
wasn't sure if it was me.
And she's back, I
Oh,
think.
you're back.
She's
so
back.
sorry.
She's back.
I got a booster and everything and it hasn't helped. I don't know if you guys heard. I said you guys probably even talked, but Adriana and I work together a lot doing hands-on. And so I can just see her. I guess I've been feeling that.
Yes, yes.
So tell me what was going on in your head as I was saying that, like with the cells and stuff, because I know you were geeking out.
Oh, because you were breaking up so much, and I'm like, we can't hear everything, and
no.
it kept doing like, okay, I know. There you go. I've also got a client today too. She was just saying she had to go.
Yeah, I saw.
Um,
Yeah, I was just saying, how can I work on other people if I was coming up with such strong stuff
oh, I see.
that my body was holding? And how much better could I have been
Oh, I
had
totally
I?
understand. Yeah.
And I had really done a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was all
Where is
perfect
there?
for, it's always perfect for whatever that person can handle to receive too. So I'm sure whatever, you know what I mean? It's all just, it works out. It works out that way where we get what we need or, or a body can't really handle anymore. So maybe the therapist isn't fully present that day. Who knows? But I'm sure you gave it your best and it was perfect when you were giving it.
I had great intent. So,
Yeah, exactly.
all
Just
right.
showing up.
So I'm going to finish up this chapter. We're going to round up. I am going to finish up this chapter and I'm going to attempt at working on 3. But I'm also going to draw or paint or something with this because that's going to help me really picture more when it comes to the body, which is why this led me to want to talk to Tad because of glial cells. Because he is so into the cells. And I also think that a lot of cell talk has changed because of the the glial cells, and so I had my husband bring the book home yesterday. So I might be tackling that with this.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to get lost in. I got lost for a little bit Googling stuff, watching videos, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Get back to the book. This is my escapism here. I need to go back to I was like, oh, what does this do? Oh, I want to see this in action. And I'm like, I just got to read the book and keep going because I could
I
get
know, and that's what happens because
years.
there are some books that literally can just take you all over the place and then you come back to it.
Then I
So it's
brought
like
this
the
out.
Bible.
And I'm like, put your books away. I brought
Have you
chemistry
taken
and
the
the
glial
controls.
cell book?
What'd you say?
I mean, have you taken the glial cell class? Either of
No.
you?
No, I want to.
Oh,
No, I
yeah,
have not.
that's going to add a whole other level.
Yeah, I
Is that
have
the
I
brain
have the
speaks
brain
one?
books. Yeah, the brain
No,
speaks.
it's not the brain
We have a
speaks.
different one.
It's right in front. It was right in front of me. Hold on. I just moved the books.
We figured this out the other day that I took one of them, but I didn't take the other one. So I did not take the glial cell class. I think I took the
Touching
brain.
the brain. There's
Oh,
touching
I
the
took
brain
touching
1
the brain.
and 2.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I took. And so I have the book Brain Stars, but I also haven't read that. So
I read half of that. I'm really good at reading half. I'm thinking Brain Stars might be the follow-up to
Oh,
this.
that would be good because I haven't read that and I do own it.
Because then what we would be doing is probably going back to chapter 2 again and digging into chapter 2 while reading Brain Cells, because because I've read quite a bit, and I believe that Brain Cells is actually chapter 2 on steroids, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
So, all right, ladies, if there's anything else that you need to share or you want to share, please go on the Facebook page and post, and
Yeah.
then just hashtag the book itself
Okay.
chapter so that we can find it easier.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so chapter 3 is, what is chapter 3?
I didn't look that far.
It is clinical applications. And it's
Oh,
not that long. I believe it's less than 50 pages compared to this, which is why I say let's keep on with this one. And let's see what happens about chapter 3. We'll we're going to ish it anyway. So we always end up going into other areas. Like I'm really working on looking into mitochondria right now as well. So, and I'm going to be talking to, I'm also reading this book called Reversing Alzheimer's. And she talks in the second chapter, I believe, about how they were basing all the studies on this, or all the reports on one study. And then they found they actually went through and discredited all of this guy's writings. And so as of 2014, they've been releasing new information on Alzheimer's, which has not been getting out there. And they're talking about how it has nothing to do with the plaque. That is not what it is. And basically all they're saying is that it has to do with the inflammation in the body, which is where I come from when I talk about the chemicals in the body, which chemicals in the body also is our emotions and all of that as well, and how our body can handle the chemicals in the body, which also goes along with getting the chia seeds and getting the gel-like liquid into your body as opposed to just the so-called water, because then the cells can repel the negative toxins.
Well, what's interesting is actually you're talking about the brain, and in the Cell Talk book on this chapter 2, page 39, when he talks about the prions, this is very interesting because he's saying that the prions, when they can stay dormant in the body and ultimately get to your brain.
Yes.
And a lot of this comes from meat.
Years.
Like meat, when you eat beef or lamb, he named a bunch of meats. It was all meats that he named. And he said that it stays dormant. If you get a prion infected meat, it stays dormant in your body, yeah, for like years. And eventually it gets to your brain and it starts eating away at your brain. So
that's what he was talking about, like mad cow
disease.
and
then later he like lists some more stuff. Like after the mad cow, I think he starts talking about like sheep and goat and like some other kind of animals that have it. But I was
then
like,
he also talked about oh gosh, cold sores, what do you call the I can't think of it. But once you get it, you just
herpes virus,
and it comes back, and like Lyme's disease can. Like I was lucky enough to catch mine right away. So despite the fact that I was like compartmentalizing my life, because it was when I was in the fire department that I got diagnosed with the Lyme's disease, thank God I was at least in touch enough to know right away. And I don't have any residuals from my Lyme's disease like I see other people. And I used to say I was lucky, and I was kind of like, yeah, I do think it's partially luck, but I do think it's because I was trying to be in tune. I was trying to be that way, but like where I was being led with the fire department was completely different. We looked at mechanism of injury, all of that, and
well, don't forget the Lyme disease and the biomat training.
oh my gosh. Yeah, that whole biomat, it's a whole new level too of this because of
we'll
how
have to get on a call just for that class, just for the biomat.
I know, Adriana, we really need to do once a week. I mean,
all right, I got this girl coming in. I gotta make sure this room's clean.
All right, hon.
Okay, thanks, guys. It was so good to see you.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
I will see you
Have
the
to go
same
too.
time
Thank
next
you
month.
so much.
Bye.
Have a
Bye-bye.
fantastic month. Bye.